FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN. News number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by the new Shell V-Power Nitro plus premium gasoline. Now with 4 levels of defense against gunk, wear, corrosion, and friction. On the line with us right now is one of the great coaches the NBA has seen, also doing an outstanding job being an analyst for ABC and ESPN throughout the last several NBA seasons. He's calling the finals with my man Mark Jackson and the great Mike Breen as well. And for the first time in his illustrious career, I think that Jeff Van Gundy can accurately be called a troublemaker. He tried to create friction between me and my Queens homeboy, Mark Jackson. With Mark Jackson, he said Mark Jackson called me a bench player. Jeff Van Gundy's on the line with me right now. What's going on, Coach? How you doing, man?
Good. I can't believe you didn't go back at him. I really couldn't.
No, yeah, I got it. It's the Queens lingo. What can I say? What can I say, Coach? But listen. But listen, let's get right into this. Last night's game, Toronto wins 118-109. Were you surprised at all by what you saw last night? And if so, by what?
Well, I wasn't surprised. I thought Toronto had 3 distinct advantages coming into the series, 1 being home court, 2 being health, and 3rd, the rhythm that comes with playing regular NBA playoff basketball and getting pushed. Golden State, even though Portland played pretty well in that series, they've been off 9 days, and it's hard to replicate NBA intensity and rhythm in practice. And so because of those 3 advantages, I thought Toronto would have I thought they could win game 1. I thought they played outstanding basketball. And now I just can't wait to see game 2 and what Golden State can do to try to, win that game and even the series.
How much credit or blame, whatever the appropriate word is, do you give to rust on the part of the Golden State Warriors that hadn't played in 10 days?
Well, I think it shows up in shooting and ball handling. And I thought, they mishandled the ball. I thought they didn't particularly convert some of their transition opportunities. I thought their effort was really good. I thought they tried exceptionally hard. It wasn't that. I just thought they weren't sharp, and I give a lot of that credit not just to the rust, but to the defense of Toronto. I think the only thing Toronto has to correct, Stephen, is their defensive rebounding, because Golden State generated a lot of good shots and three-point makes off of second shots, because it is so difficult to rematch up after a second shot. And so I just don't know where Golden State goes in the half court, except that Klay Thompson has to be great, along with Curry. And then, I think Cousins maybe gives them a jolt as he gets a little bit more rhythm as the series goes along.
How concerned should we be, Coach Jeff Van Gundy, by what we saw from Andre Iguodala last night? Not just his play, but how he came down on his leg and clearly is injured. I don't know whether it's hamstring, his calf, or whatever. How concerned should we be about that?
No, I'd be very concerned. I think, again, all the health issues for Golden State, you can only fight that off for so long. That's not to say Golden State couldn't win this series even without Iguodala, but you keep cutting down on your margin of error. And I think that injury, whether it was the calf, the hamstring, I think that most likely will prevent him from playing in the near future. And if so, that further challenges their depth.
Jeff Van Gundy right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. What exactly did the Golden State Warriors do to neutralize Kawhi Leonard, at least to some degree, in Game 1? And what are you anticipating will happen in Game 2?
Well, I thought they did a really good job of, at times, trapping him in the pick and roll, and at other times, after they switched the pick and roll, really making the floor look crowded, so there weren't these huge driving gaps to attack. They were trying to make him pass off the dribble, and I think what he's got to do is be a little bit less reluctant to give the ball up early. If they come with that second guy, trust the pass early in the game. Keep making the right play. Don't feel like you have to hit home runs, because Toronto has enough weapons offensively to punish double teams. And so if they're going to come at you with a second defender, make them pay with the pass.
Jeff Van Gundy, is it possible, plausible in any way, that the challenges that the Toronto Raptors faced en route to the NBA Finals could actually end up being tougher than the challenge they have in the Finals against the reigning two-time defending NBA champions at this point?
I'm not sure about that, Stephen, but I do think the challenges they faced along the way, they harden you. They toughen you up. Going 7 games, losing the first game in the playoffs to Orlando at home, and then winning 4 straight hard-fought games. And then in Philly, being down 2-1 and coming back to pull a miracle out with the 4-bounce make to win it. And then coming back from 2-0 down to beat an outstanding Milwaukee team. I think all of that hardened them for this challenge at hand. And so as they had to fight and claw and scratch, Golden State, was pushed somewhat by Houston. I think they were pushed a little bit more than we would think in a sweep by Portland, because, they got them down double digits 3 straight games. But certainly I think the more hardened team is Toronto.
Jeff Van Gundy right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. I'm thinking about, and I've heard you speak about this, but I wanted you to elaborate on it for my radio audience, this idiocy of a conversation that people have had as to the Golden State Warriors being so much better without Kevin Durant than they were with him. Talk to me about why that's so idiotic, and put into perspective as a basketball coach what exactly Kevin Durant brings to the table and what the Golden State Warriors are missing because of his absence.
Well, I think, first of all, you can't do better than the Warriors have done with Durant. He's been with them 2 years. They've won 2 NBA championships, and he's been the Finals MVP both times. So you can't minimize just how great they've been with him. But likewise, you can't discount what they've done without him. The 31-1 or whatever that record was prior to last night.
Right.
Yeah, that's an incredible accomplishment, but not in the fact that you're better off without a great player, but that you have so much talent and so much toughness that even without a great player, you can still compete at such a high level. But you'll remember this, Stephen. When I was coaching in New York, people in the media were trying to push the narrative that the Knicks would be better off without Patrick Ewing. He was slowing them down, right? Total nonsense. When you get into those type of games where you need a great player to pull you through the last 8 minutes of hard-fought playoff games, you need absolute superstars. That's what Kawhi Leonard has done for Toronto, and guess what? They played great without him when he was out during the regular season. Fantastic. But they never thought, we got a better shot in the playoffs without Kawhi Leonard. And so the same absurdity holds true with Durant. Yes, can you win games? Absolutely. Could you possibly even beat Toronto in a series without Durant? Yes, but your margin of error is nil, and you have a much better chance with greatness on the floor in Kevin Durant, because he gives you the absolute bailout. If you're struggling to score, you get him the ball in a spot, elbow, top of the key, low post, and he can go one dribble and jump over you and shoot. He's the absolute best bailout offensive option in the NBA today.
Jeff Van Gundy right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. So with all of that being said, with him not expected to be available before Game 4, according to numerous reports, you're one of those people that don't believe that he'll be back at all. Is that correct?
I don't. I think that's a tough injury. I don't think you can come back at 75 or 80% from that injury without major risk for hurting yourself even further. So if he makes it back, obviously it helps them. But I felt since he was hurt in that series, that we most likely wouldn't see him, because I've had players who've had that injury, and it is a tough injury, and it's hard to rush back. It's a 4, 6, 8-week injury.
Jeff Van Gundy right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Coach, how do you make up for the absence of Kevin Durant? If you're the coach of the Golden State Warriors right now, knowing he's not going to be there, that Boogie Cousins is a bit compromised because he just got back after a 14-game postseason absence, and, of course, Andre Iguodala hampered, what do they have at their disposal, Coach? What do you see that could propel them to victory against this Toronto Raptors squad with those inhibitions available to them?
Well, I think you have to sell to your team. We scored 109 points. That's got to win on the road. We got to lock in and lock down defensively. And the way you do that is better individual defensive effort, better schematic, less mistakes in your scheme. And then also your offense oftentimes is your best defense, because you can't turn the ball over and give a deeper athletic team like Toronto opportunities in transition. So I would start, if I was Steve Kerr today, and I'm sure like most coaches would, start with the defense, what you can correct there, and then go from there to turnovers. And if you can take away some of the mistakes with the ball and at the defensive end, then maybe you can hold them to 105, and then you have a chance to win a game.
Jeff, I want to transition to a different subject, and you know, I just finished talking about Mike D'Antoni because I'm sure you heard the news that he wanted a 3-year contract extension, that Tillman Fertitta basically offered him a contract, that was incentive-based, where, you got about $5 million, and then after that, you get $1 million for every single round that you win, et cetera, et cetera. I know that you listen to that story. Then you hear about Ty Lue and Monty Williams and with the LA Lakers job, and they were both offered 3-year deals as opposed to 5-year deals, and told by the Lakers that we'll be pretty much picking your coaching staff, et cetera, et cetera. I want to know what are your thoughts about the coaching profession in the NBA as we speak, how attractive it still is to you, or has it lost some of its luster, or are there any changes that you've seen that has taken place in terms of the coaching in the NBA that alarms you at all?
Well, there's a lot that I think make it a tougher job now than it's ever been, Stephen. You're asked to practice less, shoot around less, prepare less, and still put out teams that execute exceptionally well. Your power over who plays and how much, who practices and how much, has been compromised by them becoming group decisions. So you're not alone in making these decisions, what you think is in your team's best interest. So you have to be very collaborative, and that's easy when it's all going well and you're winning. But when you think that certain things should be happening or need to happen, and you don't get that opportunity to coach exactly how you think is best, it makes it harder with your team. So I think these coaches are under great stress and strain and don't have the same preparation opportunities as was afforded coaches just 5-10 years ago. And I find it a very challenging time for these coaches, and particularly when teams want to pick assistants for you. I've never understood, if you're going to entrust me to coach your team, if, for instance, Ty Lue, then I believe he's proven himself to have good decision-making capabilities. I would entrust him to pick his staff as well. I think that's only right. I think to do it another way sets you up for a lack of alignment, particularly when things don't go exactly as you want them to. So I think management should rethink this whole notion that they should pick assistant coaches.
One of the things that bothered me about it, Coach, is that especially, and I don't hear too many coaches, former coaches, and what have you, in a profession bringing this up enough, so I will. The age of analytics, for example. You hear about this all the time, about analytics, about numbers, stats like PERs and stuff like this. And I said to myself, excuse me, I remember Jimmy Jackson and a couple of other players tell me Pat Riley was using some analytics stuff in the early 90s, for crying out loud. This is not new to us, but it has now become a predominant factor where you got guys that are numbers driven, and that basically, has diluted the importance of what you see with your own two eyes of basketball and overall basketball acumen, et cetera, and how you have owners insisting that individuals like this are actually a part of the staff, if not flat out running teams, for example. I have no problem with their involvement in the game of basketball. I think there's a place for it, but I don't think it should usurp those with actual basketball experience and a basketball acumen that clearly transcends just numbers. What do you say to that, sir?
Well, I agree with you. I think the best organizations do both. They look at numbers, they're intrigued by numbers, and they also believe that their eyes can tell them if those numbers are true or not in their situation. And so I worked for Pat Riley for 4 years in New York. He absolutely used stats. Heck, my dad, a small college and junior college coach, was a huge stat guy. So this is the use of stats has been around for a long time, and it's not new. It's just been given a different term, and it's called analytics now versus statistical or stats. And they go a little bit deeper. Some, I think, are outstanding. Others are just noise. And I think the good organizations, because there's so many different stats out there, they can whittle down the stats to those that actually impact winning and aren't taken off the path of winning by useless stats. And so I worked for Daryl Morey, or with Daryl Morey, 1 year in Houston. Mm-hmm. His first year there as an assistant general manager. He was working under Carol Dawson. And I found the information that he used or gave to us very, very valuable. And I don't think he thought, at least at that time, I don't know if it's changed, that it was to replace basketball people, but it was to supplement what the coaches had or what they thought or what they saw by breaking down the game film and the opponent's game film. So I just think it can all work together. But I think what hurts that, Stephen, is the explosion in the number of people working in organizations who have a voice in all these decisions. There is, you look out on the court now of an NBA game pregame, and it's just a sea of humanity.
Jeff Van Gundy right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back to the finals, Coach. Warriors forward Kevin Durant will not play in Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Coach Steve Kerr said today Kevin's not going to play Sunday, but they did also get some good news after an MRI on Andre Iguodala's left leg came back clean. According to the team, Kerr had said prior to the MRI results that the forward seems to be doing very well. What does that mean to you when you hear that news about the Golden State Warriors?
Wow, when I saw him hobble off last night and then hobble to the locker room, I was pessimistic for him even playing in the rest of the series. So that's great news if you're a Warrior fan, and great news if you're an NBA fan. And Mark and I discuss this all the time. If you're competing, you don't care who's playing on the other team. You don't care if there's injuries. You just want to win. But as NBA fans, we want to see the teams whole and healthy. And I'm happy for Iguodala if he's able to play. And obviously it's good news if Durant can continue to make progress and at some point be able to come back in this series.
Is Game 2 a must-win for any of these teams?
Well, I think obviously the Warriors wouldn't want to go down 0-2. We've talked about the numbers there that Toronto justified in the last series. But as important as I think for Nick Nurse, he's got to sell to his team, and it's hard. you come off an emotional win, and you don't know if you don't think you're letting down at all, but he's got to have them revved up and ready to go because they need this game every bit as bad as Golden State. And if you want to win it all, you got to understand, like, it's going to be hard, and there's going to be challenges, and Golden State's coming out hard and fast and heavy, and your readiness to win this game is imperative. You don't want to go back to Golden State at 1-1. You want to be up 2-0. You want to be in command.
Coach, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, man. Thank you so much, buddy. You enjoy it.
Right.
Enjoy the week, and I'll talk to you Sunday.
All right. Take care, Stephen.
Thank you. The one and only Jeff Van Gundy, former head coach for the New York Knicks, former head coach for the Houston Rockets, present NBA analyst extraordinaire for ESPN and ABC, right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN is always the number to call up. That's 888-729-3776. We'll get back to your calls about Mike D'Antoni, about the NBA Finals, about free agency. The list goes on and on and on. Can't wait to talk to you all about it. I'll make sure I open the lines up so we can do that. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, gentlemen, stop lounging around. Be active. Take your girl out. Go to a game or a concert. Get tickets to something. The